So let me guess, you scored some free or cheap lumber off Facebook Marketplace? Now you want to shiplap a wall in your house. Perfect, that's what we're going to do today on Brewbuilds. I'm going to show you how to cut the joints and how to shiplap your wall in a super easy way. Let's get after it. Alright, so a buddy of mine is currently re-siding his house and he ripped off all of his old original cedar siding. I don't know the vintage, but if I were to guess, it's probably a 70s house, 70s, 80s maybe, I don't know. But anyways, he had a ton of this cedar siding. It's all tongue and groove. It kind of ranges. It's roughly anywhere from 5/8 to 3/4 inch thick. So what I'll be doing is spending the next eternity of my life pulling out all of these nails and staples in this, and hopefully being 100% with that because the next part's going to be sending it through my planer. Well anyways, what I'll do is I'm going to rip these down. They all kind of vary in widths as well. So I'll be cutting these down to probably anywhere from 6 to 8 inches, and I might even alternate the widths. But I'll be cutting the tongue and groove portions off, and then I'll be cutting my own shiplap joints to be siding that bathroom that you saw earlier. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing, is going through with some adjustable pliers, screwdriver, and a hammer and pulling all of these nails out, which, lucky me. Okay, so I'll be making this zero clearance fence for my table saw, and this is in prep for when I go to cut my shiplap joints. So I'm gonna make the zero clearance fence so then I can get a more accurate cut with my dado stack that I'll be installing. So this is literally just 2 cut down pieces for the sides here. And I have one wider one, which will actually sit and straddle the top of the fence. So I'm just going to make this is just really, really basic. I had some scrap Baltic birch, 1/2 inch Baltic birch plywood left over. So I'm just going to construct this up pretty quick. It's a sacrificial fence. You'll see it going forward. So it's not really intended to be super fancy. So let's get after it. Alright, so real quick before I put this zero clearance fence into service, I'm going to use some homemade wax paste, and I'm going to wax up the blade side of the fence, and then I will be putting some number 6 3/4 inch screws on the opposite side of the fence to kind of tack into place. So as I'm cutting the shiplap joints in the siding, the fence won't want to slide with the siding forwards. So after I've cut my slot, the 1/2 inch groove in this insert plate, now it's time to set my fence up and the height of cut for my shiplap joint. So this is, again, fairly simple. What I'll do is I'll slide my fence over until it's flush with the inside of this freshly cut insert plate. And you just kind of want to tap it around until it is flush. So I'd say that's pretty good. I turn the saw on and bring the blade up, and it should remove some slight material here. And once I do, or I 100% know that this fence is in line with the blade or at the same width from the blade to give me that 1/2 inch cut, then I'll come back and set the height of the blade with the saw turned off. my width, I'm about a 32nd shy, which I'm gonna call that good. This isn't like as long as I cut them all the same, it won't make a difference. And then on the depth, I'm right on at a 1/4 inch. So that'll be half the width of this, or half the thickness of this wood. This scrap piece is actually, I don't know, it's probably about 3/4 inch thick right now. So it's not as thin as my actual siding material that I'll be installing. So. All right, so now that I have all my siding up from the floor all the way to the top of this door, I kind of lucked out with my shiplap pieces and their width, because up here you can see that this joint is almost flush with the top of my door frame. We're talking about a 1/16 of an inch difference there, which will be easy because when I do the piece across the top here, I'll just shave off a small portion of the siding to make it flush. So no big deal, I'm not gonna even worry about that. But what I'm gonna do now is I've gotta cut this little notch here. So I took a quick measurement, which is from the side of the door to this header board, it's about 5/8 of an inch. And then from the start of the previous shiplap joint up to this header here is about 1 5/8 inches. So now I'll go lay this out on this piece that I have and cut it out with my handsaw. All right, so last night I ended by, so I did this top row here up by the top header board of my door, and I ended by notching out this piece here along the trim so that it would fit nice and tight in there. So as I'd mentioned earlier, if I can get it, so I kind of lucked out with my shiplap boards being so close to the right dimensions for the top of this door jamb here. So honestly, you could really you could continue this on and no one would probably notice, but I like to make things more complicated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to notch the next layer of boards out. I'm gonna notch out a 1/16 of an inch, the whole width of this header or this top door frame piece here, so that when I go to put this piece on, it's gonna continue on this way, that it'll actually sit flush and closing the gap here. Like I said, it's only a 1/16 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is take one of my boards, mark it up, make a rip cut, so that way when I put this next piece on, because it's going to continue on along here, that it'll sit flush and you won't really be able to see that. Just like that, this wall is shiplap. So real quick, these boards were some free cedar siding that I received from a friend that was residing this house. So I took them and repurposed them for this wall. These boards were cut down to 7 inches wide. The shiplap joints were a 1/2 inch wide by 1/4 inch thick. Reason being is the finish milling that I did on these boards brought them down to a 1/2 inch, and that worked out nicely. I would advise to check your Facebook market listings because you can find this type of lumber for either cheap or free in your local area for most people. And this trim is actually done in your typical construction grade 2x4 pine lumber, common lumber. And the reason being was the door that I built a year ago, which I'll have a link for the description, and that's super easy build and it's actually turned out really nice. But the trim for that door is the same type of wood, so it matched that really nice. Plus, if I were to trim this out in cedar, it would have not had the contrast that I was going for. You could knock this project out in probably a weekend. I did it, a few hours on a couple weekends and then a couple short hour or two here over the course of a couple nights after work. So no problem for anyone knocking it out. And I used a dado stack to cut all my shiplap joints, but you could certainly use a router and a router table with a rabbiting bit to cut these same joints. So don't let that discourage you if you don't have those certain tools. I think anyone can accomplish that. All right, well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you learned something from this video. Catch you on the next one.